One, we are live. Welcome to This is an IT Support Group stream with Lewis Pope over at Enable Head Nerd there. If you're just joining us today, we've been doing these sessions about once a month or so. We go over the latest cybersecurity news with our resident expert, Lewis, and kind of have a chat, bring up any questions. This is live right now. So if you have comments, pop them in YouTube, and then we can post those during the stream. I'll post one now. Hello. Boom, there it is. Anyways, Lewis, why don't you give us a little bit of an intro of who you are and what you're up to over at Enable?
For anybody that's catching these for the first time, I'm Lewis Pope. I'm one of the head nerds over at Enable. We're education and advocacy in my role. Very much I'm in my role because I have been in the MSP channel for almost 15 years at this point. 6 of those on the MSP side, 7 years on the Enable side. So very much practical implementation of security controls, best practices, compliance. Those are all things that I just kind of eat, sleep, and breathe, and help our partners, our customers at Enable, go through the maturation journey of cybersecurity. The whole rising tides, rise all ships. We're very big on if we can improve the health of the overall, MSP ecosystem, and not just the MSP ecosystem, but out into IT professional. The more we can benefit there, the more it benefits us. It's just the fact that this is a shared responsibility world now whenever it comes to risk management, and everybody needs help. And that's a big part of what I do, is just making sure that I'm there to help people whenever it comes to the challenges of cybersecurity, from the simple stuff of making sure that your junior engineers aren't mapping drives with admin credentials up to, actual VCSO compliance type work.
Yeah, fantastic. Love the advocacy in the community that you guys provide. And of course, we have somewhat of a new face, Mr. Ed Nevard. Ed, could you give a little intro of who you are? I'll give a tiny one. You're a community manager at This is an IT Support Group, but why don't you give your own intro?
Yeah, so I've been helping out with the IT group for about 4 or 5 years now. Been growing it since a mere sort of 30K. Got background in cybersecurity, been in tech for since I can remember. Always been interested in technology, and I love to see what's going on in the cyber landscape. And yeah, excited for the stream today.
Killer, let's do it. I almost think we rebrand this to like Lewis's links or something, because Lewis just sends me loads and loads of articles that are so interesting and sometimes above my head. But Lewis, let's kick it off. Firstly, there's been tons of hype around threat actors using buzzword AI to build tools or otherwise conduct attacks. Curious what the integration of AI into cyber attacks looks like right now today.
Well, so there is always the hype around it and the possibilities, which is usually what gets the headlines. Celebrity vulnerabilities and AI hype will usually take the oxygen out of the room for every other meaningful conversation. But right now, what is actually being done with AI, and this is some things that CrowdStrike sourced in their 2025 global threat reports. You can go, register, download it, read it yourself. But one of the measures, one of the metrics they pulled out of their reporting this year was that there was a 442% increase in voice phishing attacks that were happening in 2024. And those voice phishing attacks were using AI components. They were using voice deepfakes to impersonate. So there's just this giant surge in the number of cases of it happening. But then, and that's in voice phishing because, well, voice phishing is probably one of the simplest attacks to conduct. It's get the phone call. It doesn't matter who your target is or what they're using, whether they're using VoIP, POTS, cellular, whatever they're doing, however you're going to be able to reach them with a voice communication. It's a relatively inexpensive tool to grab to do deep fake voices. you'd only need maybe, I think they've gotten it down to where you only need a really good 30 seconds of audio from an individual, and you can clone their voice.
We are screwed right now. Somebody might be
Totally.
cloning us.
And
There's so
then,
much, especially you two.
yeah, and then the attacker, you know, depending on what tooling they're using, they can just type out what they want the AI to say, or they can speak it and have like an overlay mechanism that does, you know, speech to text and then text back to speech again. That's is a really big problem because of one, yeah, true, you know, yeah, they can impersonate somebody. But there's also language and localization correction that can happen at the same time, because the non-native language speaker is going to say things differently than the person that was the original cloned native language speaker. So they can correct for that a little bit as well. But the real danger there is that it defeats so many human countermeasures that we have naturally. If a random person, if we got a phone call and they said they were John, but they did not sound like John, and asked me to do something unusual, I would probably not do it. But if somebody calls and they say they're John and they sound exactly like John and they ask me to do something unusual, I might say, well, I guess John's got a good reason for asking me to do this. I should go do it.
Yeah. Louis, can I interject really quickly here?
Yeah.
So you sent me, of course, this beautiful CrowdStrike global threat report. It seems very worthwhile. So pop in, you know, maybe some fake info if you download here, which I've done. But as you were speaking, I just searched Twitter, or now X, for AI voice attack. I don't know if you've seen this article or this.
Oh yeah,
this
that
story.
one.
Someone
Oh,
AI
yeah.
voice cloned White House chief of staff and asked for list of individuals president should pardon, cash transfer questions, etc. If your team doesn't know how to verify identity and avoid getting tricked by voice clones, now is the time to prep them.
Yeah.
And there's an article to the Wall Street Journal if you're not as trusting of.
Oh yeah, no, this is that we
post
are
it.
in the. There must. This is one of those kind of, you know, you can tell when things are a little bit into a circus environment as far as proper security controls go. And whenever you have people that are unprepared and the proper threat modeling has not been conducted and the proper training for the individuals that should be concerned with those threats has not been done, this is a prime example of how bad it can get. There was so beyond just voice phishing, there was the full deep fake that hit the Arup engineering firm in Hong Kong. Was it Hong Kong? I believe it was. It may have been another country, but Arup engineering firm. They had an employee that got invited to a conference call that appeared to be a conference call with the company's chief financial officer. And they join this conference, and there's a bunch of people there, but every last one of them was deep fakes. All of them were full voice and visual deep fakes.
Louis, I'm going to move to the woods.
Yeah, it was enough to confuse it. This is not a person who is concerned with this type of stuff. They are a person concerned about accounts payable and accounts receivable type things. But it was convincing enough to get them to transfer over a couple of different actions about $25 million.
Yeah, I think we should highlight too that this is not like something you need a lot of smarts for. There are, unfortunately, there's so many tools for good and bad. Obviously, bad in this case, but like one API call with probably that 30 seconds of somebody's voice, you can clone the voice, and then you can start.
It's script kiddie gone mad these days.
Oh, it is. It absolutely is. We're in the world of where you can download nuclear grades weaponry from GitHub.
Yeah.
I mean, you threat actors, there's been commoditization of tools, ransomware as a service, access brokerage, access as a service. There's just so many business models built on the cyber crime side nowadays, and the incentivizations of everything that have been happening. Yes, what a lot of us, that are probably 35 plus, we grew up right square in the heydays of, bulletin boards going away, AOL reigning supreme, and being a script kiddie was like the height of popularity whenever you were still in high school. But that same drive, that same curiosity, just with a slight different encouragement in another direction. And instead of just hacking your school's computer lab and changing all the backgrounds to Evangelion, didn't do that. You wind up in a situation where they're perpetuating actual same level of skill, but able to perpetrate an attack that causes real world financial impact.
The actual landscape for effective destruction or interruption has just been massively blown up from what it used to be, with all these AI tools and the amount of stuff you can now impact with just a simple script. It's just continuously getting worse every day.
Right. And that's not made any better by the fact that on the opposite side of it. So if we count them as, a black hat and, malicious red team, then over on the white hat and blue team defender side, there's that same kind of problem of there's a lot of neat tools and a lot of people coming in with the knowledge of how to use these neat tools, but no underlying knowledge about things. And it makes it much harder for you in your role. In your role as a defender, particularly, it just makes your job a lot harder, and it reduces your capabilities to not have the underlying knowledge and experience. But on the threat actor side, it's like, no, all you need to know is learn how to use that tool and go do what damage you can do.
Yeah. Lewis, or how can people protect against this? Of course, it's scary and terrible, but what's the remediation or way to?
So this one, I say, I don't like getting into technology solutions for this one. I like getting into processes and procedures and proper security controls on your business workflows. There is no technology solution for one person in your organization being able to add entries to your bookkeeping solution, create new POs, process accounts receivables, have access to the bank account, and be able to do wire transfers. All of that cannot rest with one person. Now, if you're a small business, that goes right out the window because it's probably going to be just one person that can do all that stuff. But you do have to, well, if that's where you stand, you have to model the threats that represents and try to put in some process security controls. Like if a wire transfer is requested by anybody in the company that is larger than X dollars, there has to be a face-to-face request for this, and it can't be over like Teams or a voice chat or Zoom. But that doesn't work at scale. So the next fallback is like, well, no, those requests can still be made through a virtual meeting, but they have to be in these enclaved virtual meeting areas that are kind of, outside and special, and training everybody to know that these types of requests are not going to come in via email. They are not going to come in with a Zoom meeting request. They are not going to. I need everybody in the organization to learn how to check who the actual sender of an email is, and not just because they changed the display name to John Smith CEO to believe it. So this one is a lot of, this is HR and people problems more so than it is a technology problem to solve it.
For sure. Yeah, and Mr. C commented, building anti-fragile systems.
Yes.
Sounds like we have a fan of Nassim Taleb, I think is where that to come from.
Anti-fragile, cyber resilience, however you want to label it. That's the, for the longest time, IT professionals and MSPs have been on the, it needs to simply work train. It needs to work, it needs to stay up, and it needs to facilitate productivity. That's the world of, honestly, that's the world of 8, 10, 15 years ago. Nowadays, it has to be planned out from the beginning with resiliency, with security in mind for anything and everything that you're doing as far for a business that has any type of digital enablement in their processes.
I think a lot of threat actors, and it's something that's been going on for 10 plus years now, is especially in larger organizations, they just rely on the fact that it will just get lost in the chaotic mess of, we don't have proper protocols in place to process invoices. There was a guy 15 years ago, 10 years ago or something that just sent loads of invoices into Google and they just got paid.
They just got paid, yeah. And Google
before AI and all the other tools they had to actually try and cause that kind of dysregulation in that environment.
Right.
It's made it worse.
So it's kind of the, to go over to a Warhammer reference. It's kind of like the Mechanicus Adeptus. It's just like at some point you run the problem of potentially winding up with a very complex, convoluted system that nobody really understands how it works. We all just pray to it and hope that it continues to work.
Give us the Adeptus Mechanicus background. Somehow I know of Warhammer, but somehow I spelled that correctly.
Okay, so short one on this one is basically just assume that, all right, we create all these wonderful, awesome, great AI systems and computer systems and machinery and all of this stuff that makes the world run. And 500 years, well, not in this world, but a couple of 100 years later, everybody forgets how any of that works. And everybody is just basically logging into an AI terminal and praying to the AI god that resides within that terminal to please do a thing for me.
Oh God, I'm not a fan. I think my nerd reference is we need a Butlerian jihad from Dune. Just throw away the computers.
It reminds me slightly of like
actually, it's a really good counterpoint to Butlerian jihad is what happened in there, and it's actually a moral points aside, it is actually a good kind of way to say, oh yeah, no, this is like the extreme societal example, but it is a cognizant example of we have to be mindful of loss of capabilities, loss of knowledge, loss of skills, because the tools that we are using hide that complexity from us. For sure.
Yeah, lots to think about. Okay. I think we after we get over how scary that is, move on to the next topic. Lewis, so there's a pretty significant unpatched vulnerability right now affecting Windows Server 2025 domain controllers. We'll post a link to what that's about and we'll share here in a moment. But for anyone who's running AD, what is this vulnerability and how concerned should any sysadmins or security teams be? And of course, it's called Bad Successor.
Yeah, Bad Successor. And this should absolutely be a top line priority for anybody and everybody that is responsible for system administration or on the security teams. And honestly, I think everybody should be tapping the person that is responsible for taking care of these systems on the shoulder and at least saying, hey, do you know about this? This is a unpatched vulnerability. So this is something that exists in all Windows Server 2025 systems and the domains that they get joined to with the DC role enabled to abuse the delegated, it's the DMSAs, which are the delegated managed service accounts. These were supposed to be Microsoft's more secure and better answer for service accounts. But apparently, well, hey, somebody, Akamai, their researchers found a way to abuse this. So all it really, the way it kind of plays out is a threat actor or somebody gets access to a machine in the environment with a valid domain account. 90% of all accounts are going to be able to execute this attack. And that user is able to just make a request using the DMSA and tell it to, I want you to copy all of the permissions from this other domain user and give it to me. So that basically gives an attacker an ability to immediately escalate themselves up to higher privilege and have full domain compromise, basically. It's trivial in its use, because again, think about it. We're back into everything's available as a double click to run just about. So the scripts to run this are, things that you can just get POCs for. I imagine there will be, these will be rolled in if they have not already been rolled into some malware or ransomware as a service platforms, or the threat actors aren't already incorporating this into their tooling. But it does represent a very, very ridiculously easy and fast way for somebody to go from regular user to full domain compromise in seconds, really.
Yeah.
And to address this right now, Microsoft's, is say, yeah, we'll patch this. Not now. We'll patch it. So everybody's kind of left to figure out what you're going to do about it right now. Monitoring is the biggest thing that you should have already been doing. There's also, they have, Akamai made a PowerShell script available. And I encourage everybody, again, if this is your responsibility, go avail yourself of this PowerShell script to run a quick audit on your domain to figure out which accounts can create these DMSAs, so you can start disabling this permission for those accounts. And then beyond that is, make sure you got monitoring. You should have, regardless of this particular threat, you should have in place either a SIM or an XDR type implementation that is evaluating and alerting and recording all of your user permission changes, escalations, logins, new object creation, new user creations, all that kind of stuff. So while this is absolutely potentially a widespread issue, I think Akamai said it was like 91% of all of the environments they looked at would, can suffer from this.
Just a few then.
It's you need to pay attention to this one.
Okay. Of course, we have links for all these. Again, to summarize, it sounds like no remediation just yet, but you can identify, which OUs might be affected with this script.
Yeah. And the kicker is, it could be a user account. It could be a computer account. It could be so anything that it kind of falls underneath that account object type in AD could potentially be used to do this. So the bad success for this PowerShell script, this should be everybody's weekend homework.
Yeah, and my recommendation as well, it should be implicit, is read the things you're running too before you run them. I like using like a Claude or a ChatGPT, whatever. What does this script do? And maybe keep that side by side. But definitely a good one to be aware of.
Yeah.
All right, Lewis, what else? You sent me another link.
Still on the Windows topic, aren't we, actually?
Yeah. Edward, do you want to go for that one?
Yeah, sure. So obviously we know that Windows 10 is coming to its end date of support, which is the 14th of October. You previously mentioned that, when it comes to risk management, keeping these kind of things in sort of unsupported systems in these managed environments, how much of an issue is it? Should people be completely getting rid of all their Windows 10 machines in all these managed environments now? Are there any mitigations, and what can people do?
Right. So, I mean, the general guidance is still that, unsupported operating systems should not be allowed in environments.
Yeah.
Go pick any security framework, any regulatory framework. There's probably going to be language in there that says unsupported operating systems, unsupported software is prohibited. Now, whenever, that's the perfect world security viewpoint. But, well, we live in a world of businesses and dollars and cents, and everybody needs justification for why they should spend a dollar. So there is the long answer is you need to conduct proper risk management processes, perform a risk assessment of those systems being in your operations, do the threat modeling for your vertical, for the industry you're in, and arrive at a actual thought out and reasoned and something that somebody is willing to sign their name to for making the decision about whether we are going to allow them to be in. And here are the additional security controls and mitigation efforts we're going to put in place because we are going to continue to use these unsupported Windows 10 operating systems, which could be the reasonable option of, well, let's enroll in Microsoft's extended security update program. Of course, that carries a price tag with it. It's about $60 a pop per endpoint for the first year, and it doubles every year after that. But you can get another 3 years of Microsoft saying, we will continue to provide you with security updates for this operating system. But if you're not, for whatever reason, you say that, no, we cannot afford or we do not want to spend that additional licensing to keep those security updates coming from Microsoft, if you're the IT individual or the CSO that's trying to advocate for why we shouldn't to everybody else, I tend to take the approach of, look, the $3.5 trillion company has told us that they are no longer going to support and update this thing and that we are on our own. We cannot make up that security deficit. We cannot spend enough money. We do not have the resources to put into making sure that this is, being kept secure. And I think that's one of the things that kind of gets lost in the conversation is, well, Microsoft's not supporting it anymore. And then, following through, well, what does that actually mean? It means that they are no longer putting any effort into it. Who's going to take over that effort? Who's ever responsible for the security of those systems? And no, I don't know anybody who is willing to say for their normal salary that they will take on the responsibility and accountability for decisions Microsoft made in the way they built their operating systems.
Yeah, completely. And I think it's always in these environments where you kind of get these SMEs that are left behind, and there's usually one or two IT guys that are stuck with systems that maybe don't meet the requirements of Windows 11, or they have to manage. They've gone to the finance department. They've said there's nothing we can do about it. And it's in those kind of situations where you have to really think about the mitigations and the risk strategies for figuring out what to do.
Yeah. And I've been really lucky in my journey over the years that I kept finding myself in positions where I kind of got to draw the line in the sand. I got to be the person that could put my foot down and make the decision. But if you don't have that luxury, it's not a fun place to be. But I think if you have the skills, if you have the personality type for it, there is quite a bit of advocating you can do and convince those, translate it from technical insecurity to business impact. And you may get people more willing to listen to you about it. And of course, and then there's always going to be the edge cases. You still have CNC machines or other industrial control systems that are still running Windows XP or Windows CE. I mean, yeah, okay, sure. Those are off on their own network. They don't have internet access. They're not, full network segmentation. They're over on a VLAN. Everything's fine. You're going to have that, but the marching order should be no unsupported operating systems in production.
Yeah.
Right on. Solid advice. Let's keep moving. Lewis, we've talked in the past a lot about what IT professionals can do to stay current or advance in their career in cybersecurity, whether it be certs, skills, whatever. We've got kind of a mixed audience here. They're in different roles and different stages of their careers. And I know the traditional dispensed advice lots of times is, well, it depends, right? Where are you at? What do you want to do? You've sent me a link to something called the NICE framework. Curious about that, and a study you've sent as well. We'll share.
Yeah.
But I hit you with a lot. Go for it.
Yeah. So there's always, a common question people will have, especially whenever their journey is early in either the career or in cybersecurity, is what certification should I be getting? What should I be pursuing? What will get me hired? And those are always I could tell you to get the exact same certifications that I got, and you could still see yourself not getting a job for 3 years. There's always that risk. So I always kind of bring it back to an earlier step of, well, let's talk about the skills that those certifications represent. And what are the skills that you need so that you can pursue any given certification, because it's needed for any specific type of role. So for that, I have started leaning on the NICE cybersecurity workforce framework, or the I forgot what the NICE part of it actually is. It's an acronym. Acronyms are fun. But I think it's the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. That's what it is. But this is a framework that's breaking down, and it does a few things. It builds a common language for cybersecurity workforce and professionals and skills. So it doesn't matter if you're in SLED, private industry, or private enterprise or whatever, you can all still be agreeing upon and speaking the same language. Because that's, if you come from SLED and you meet somebody that's only ever operated in the MSP space supporting small retails, you're not speaking the same language when it comes to security. This can help with it, but also it provides categorization of cybersecurity functions, roles, defining tasks, the expected knowledge and skills that a cybersecurity professional should possess for any specific role. So it'll let you work either forwards or backwards through the question. You can look at, you can look for what skills a specific role you're interested in needs, or you can, look at the skills you currently possess and then go find which roles those skills kind of align to help you decide, possible further learning, career paths, or, choosing which certifications you should go grab. And I really like this because it can be a standardized, here, hopefully in the US, but also even, globally, this could still be a really good agreed upon lexicon and established baseline of these are the skills and capabilities that we expect future cyber security professionals to possess.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, this certainly looks useful. We've popped a link to the NICE framework down in the comments as well.
And even if you're not on the, well, what certifications, you're on the, maybe you're more on the business side of what am I supposed to be looking for? If you're a services, if you're a services manager, operations manager for a SOC, for a NOC, maybe you're just an MSP owner operator and you want to know, well, what do I need to be looking for in my new hires? This is also a really good resource for you.
It certainly works both ways for both the recruiters and also people looking for a job as well.
Yep.
Yeah, and I am again, AI fan and perhaps shill. Just popped in some of these skill statements to, of course, they have their own, learning resources and courses, but use every tool you've got. And this might be a good starting point to kind of okay, expand a little bit on, what's behavioral analysis or anomalous activity, some of these different things. So definitely looks like a really, really solid resource. Lewis, another link you sent over to me was the cybersecurity workforce study. What's this all about?
So ISC squared, this is who I get most of my professional certifications do come from them. My first real big, actual security certification was from them. I got my SSCP.
Nice.
I'm actually getting my CISSP next month. Yay.
Hey.
But it's a really good work down of, if you are, again, depending on which side of the fence you're on, are you on the employee, the individual side that's trying to look out and make sure you got good planning for your future career, or you're on the business side and you're trying to keep an eye on what the changes in the landscapes are, because that's going to affect your hiring and your retention and the increases of payroll you're going to have to pay out for these new specialized skills you want people to possess. This is a good, this particularly specifically, I sent you a link that had a specific section in here about AI. And I wanted to call it out because there's always the general, AI is going to cause labor loss. It's going to displace individuals. But I wanted to highlight this one just because this isn't exactly what this particular, research and report is saying. This is more leaning into the way I've always thought of it, of AI is going to reduce workloads, but it's reducing workloads on already stretched and overused resources. So it's not going to get rid of any role so much as it is give people in roles breathing room.
I mean, as it says here, 53% of surveyed people says they worry it will open us up to greater risks. So there's a clear trade-off there, because most people don't understand how this stuff works properly and what to look for and how to manage it properly.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's, again, back to the, are we just praying to the AI God? Will you please do the thing we want you to do? And that turns into, wasted time, wasted productivity. It may have done what you actually wanted it to do, but guess what? There's logic bombs or time bombs that are embedded in the code that you didn't catch because you did not have the skill and the experience for it.
Yeah.
And that runs right smack into the wall of vibe coding, which I am trying to, because it is not my wheelhouse. It is not my realm of expertise. But I am working on doing a little research paper on specifically vibe coding, because it is one of those, especially for expectation setting for people that are just coming in. Vibe coding is like that first hit of a new drug. That's amazing. But then whenever you go back to it the second time and a little bit more, you start seeing the weaknesses, you start seeing the gaps, and then you go back again another time because you've learned a little bit more. And eventually over time, you'll figure out what is this AI tool good for. So you start recognizing this agentic AI is my hammer. This agentic AI tool is my scalpel. This LLM is my, is my plane sander. And you just have to figure out what are these tools appropriate for, and do not ask them to do what they cannot do.
Yeah, I kind of find it both interesting and quite concerning that when they ask the question, I think it's a bit further up in the report, Stetson, it says, I have received sufficient training from my organization to this point around Gen AI, in it being in the organization, and do you have sufficient training on it? That one there. North America and Europe scored the lowest out of all of the continents on that. So it's clear that there's not enough information or training within organizations surrounding risks in AI and cybersecurity whatsoever.
There's not. I'm lucky here at Enable. It's not been that way for us. We have been very blessed. We have Nicole Ranicky, She has a pedigree that is beyond my ability to remember. But she's one of those, oh yeah, sure, she has a couple of patents, and I think she's a PhD, and she teaches cybersecurity ethics classes, and it's just one of those lists of,
Nice.
yeah, no, she is an authority.
Mhm.
And she's helped us a lot at Enable with her, not with only with our tooling and what we're doing going forward and building out, but making sure we have good established core pillars of how we work with AI ethically, safely, not only for, uh, data privacy and regulatory purposes, but also for, making sure internally it's being implemented appropriately.
Yeah.
Yeah, extremely important, and hopefully we see this number rise as folks catch on here. I do want to take a little bit of a side quest here to field this question from Mr. C. What are the top 2 skills cybersecurity pros need to thrive in the next 12 to 18 months, and what is now obsolete?
Ooh,
That's a good question.
man. So we're in opinions here. So, I'll give my 2 opinions. So there's one is management level cybersecurity skills. And by management level, I'm talking about policy level cybersecurity stuff, the vCISO, the fractional CISO, the full CISO. There is a really, really big need for competent individuals that understand the technology, but also business impacts, regulatory impacts, compliance impacts, business efficiencies, and operational resiliency. We're getting out of cybersecurity, and we're also getting into like human safety and physical safety and concerns like that too. But I think that is one of you definitely have some unrealized opportunities there, especially if you are in the MSP space or maybe the IT consultancy space and you're looking for the new gig. Fractional CISO, virtual CISO services. Absolutely wonderful. You got to put in a lot of time that's not going to get paid for in effort, but you're making up for that because you're basically pulling a salary from them for it. Then I think the second skills would probably be brush up on your threat intelligence digestion, your ability to go and pull either a threat intelligence research report from Akamai, from CrowdStrike, from Microsoft Security, whoever, being able to pull that, read it, understand what they're talking about as far as IOCs, and I think specifically the skill, being able to take the Yara or Sigma rules that you find and convert them so that you can use them in whatever it is that you have available to yourself for your environments.
If I could just throw in my 2 cents there as well, I'd probably say that resilience under uncertainty as a personality trait, being an IT professional, especially in cybersecurity with all this AI-driven attacks that we've been talking about, staying calm under pressure, making decisions without perfect information, but understanding what threats look like, and second questioning, is that really the CEO asking for that bank transfer? I don't think that's going to be correct. Setting up those protocols so that even users at the lower end points of the company are not falling for those kind of things or don't have the ability to, and just securing your space in that way. I think that's especially as a SOC lead or those kind of roles where you're managing the company's security. I think just having that kind of personality will take you a long way.
Yeah, I think you touched on a good cultural element there too. With that I've always framed it as you need yourself and your team to be able to respond with urgency, not panic.
Yes.
And the only way your team can respond with urgency and not panic is to practice. So I kind of, as not a personal cybersecurity skill, but a business / organizational cultural skill would be that is to practice what you preach, practice what you've implemented. If you have never run a parallel restore of data, if you have never run pull the plug exercise on production before, that's something your team needs to have experience with doing, because M&S was I believe it was either M&S or the other one that got hit recently, which was
M&S
like,
in the UK.
Where it was like they made this decision of, screw it, we're pulling stuff offline.
Cooperative, they're another food chain in the UK that
that's
also got attacked. They were the ones that just pulled all of their system ordering systems down. They were just like, we're going to cut this before it gets worse. We're going to prevent the attack from spreading. We're just going to disconnect the systems and deal with it before it gets worse.
And they made that decision. Look, we're just going to take it on the chin for this and prevent it from getting worse. Exactly.
That's the one.
Now, how much of that was pre-planned? That is how they would respond with it. And that was how they went through the risk management exercises, and they decided that, yes, we will be accountable and responsible for this decision in the future. Or if it was a knee-jerk response, this is the best thing we can do in the moment. But I do appreciate that they made the decision and they had some good communication around it, which is not what a lot of companies will do whenever they suffer from this type of an attack.
Certainly, yeah.
I popped some links to both of these attacks in the comments there. I'll briefly answer Mr. C's question just a little bit generically. I'd say cultivate the ability to learn, or to learn as a meta skill. And some of these things we're chatting about is use of AI tools or Gen AI tools. Learn how they're being used adversarially, but also how you can augment yourself, your own team, to get more done or to be more effective. And as Lewis mentioned, find when that's appropriate as well. It's not always.
It's the don't wait for somebody else to teach you about your role. Be hungry,
unscheduled,
go learn, but also at the same time, remember to stay in your lane as far as the business is concerned, because that will also get you in trouble for, sometimes getting outside of your lane. And you have to be able to balance that. And that is a professional skill set. Learning when, learning when to just make sure something is written down and you have an accounting and documentation for it. And when it's something that you actually really need to go take to the CSO or the CFO or somebody else and say, look, I am just a meager underling that is 7 levels down in the org, but this needs to be seen. That's a professional skill thing that there's never good answers or guidance on that, aside from consult your solicitor or lawyer.
Yes.
Good advice.
Oh, cool. We're reaching the end here, but we have one additional timely question. Ed, do you have that one handy?
Yeah, sure. So I'm sure, as everyone watching and as we all know, yesterday a big chunk of internet services went down. And basically, who was affected by this and what actually happened?
Yeah, so that was, I'm going to assume almost everybody here felt that yesterday. It was a issue that, actually there were 2 major issues. One was Cloudflare, as it seems to be sometimes. Cloudflare has a hiccup and everybody else feels it. This was apparently something that happened because they lost access to some third-party storage redundancy. Apparently it was no longer available to them, and once that became unavailable, it just started a cascade of failures that just went out from there. Then to also muddy the waters on what's happening, why can't we get to these things, Google also had a issue with their cloud identity and access management platform. So that went out, which means your authentication actions for Gmail, for Drive, for a bunch of Google services were unavailable. You couldn't, they were there, they were running, you just couldn't authenticate and get into the services. So that resulted in a significant portion of the internet becoming unavailable for a lot of people, a lot of workflows, a lot of services. And this is kind of, a perfect example of what happens whenever you become reliant on unseen, quiet subservices and dependencies. There's always the XKC cartoon of the one tiny block down at the bottom holding everything else up. But this really is a, kind of a spit in the face of what DARPA did whenever the internet was originally built. The internet was originally designed and built for the concept and the principle of resilience against everything, including nuclear warfare. And now we have an internet that can be brought to its knees because somebody screws up a border gate protocol route on something, or somebody forgets to renew an SSL cert.
Yeah. I think the total time frame lasted 2 hours and 20 something minutes.
Yeah, it was about 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And, do the math on that out across everybody that was impacted, and that is hundreds of billions of dollars in losses.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was Workers KV itself. I think there was no point where 0 requests were being processed, but roughly 90% of them were being dropped. So for most people, they were basically fully down. But I can't really hit their response time on that. I think considering it was a third-party outage, they
did what they could as fast as they can.
Yeah.
But this also is one of those things of, guess what? If this isn't in your threat modeling for your business, this needs to be in your threat modeling. I made a comment whenever the M&S and the co-op originally happened. I kind of made a comment that, every business needs pen and paper fallback. Yeah. And one of the comments I got, while I still agree with the response I got, that if you can fall back all of your operations to just pen and paper, then you're not being efficient and you're not automating and operationalizing your business enough, which I mean, yeah, true. But that does not remove the fact that you still need to have pen and paper fallbacks for all processes that you can have pen and paper fallbacks for. Now, whenever co-op first hit their issue, there may have been, 60, 70 semi-trailers or lorries loaded with perishables. If the systems are out, how's that fleet management happening? Do they stick where they are? Can they buy gas? Where do we go store this stuff in the meantime if it can't be delivered? Those are the things that have to be documented pen and paper in a emergency operations manual. So whenever something does happen and that service goes out, it can be pulled and put into practice.
There was a point where my local co-op, they managed to prioritize 3 things, which was milk, eggs, and bread. And that was all they had in stock. They just went right back to basics, and they're like, okay, what do people need? We're going to prioritize that and do that by pen and paper. But I'm always an advocate of having that backup, and I think most hybrid environments are probably better off than just going full cloud if your dependencies are too high.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm an outlier for that position sometimes, but it's, if you've ever been on the other side of an incident where a business did not properly plan and they are coming to you begging you to help them get their operations back up, help them start cash flow again, because they're not going to be able to make paychecks next week if cash flow does not resume. I've been on the other side of those incident response with companies before, and half of the work we do in the beginning was not restoring systems. Half of the work was restoring business functions without the technology backing.
Yeah.
Because that was, that was the fastest way for them to get cash flow back running again. And I believe that is a blind point for a lot of MSPs, for a lot of IT professionals. We like to stay out of the business side of it.
Yeah.
because we don't want the headache. We don't want the responsibilities. We don't want the liability exposure, but more and more and more, I don't want to say you're going to be the smartest person in the room, but more and more, you're going to know more about the total operations of the whole business. And you're going to be able to see things that other people can't see. And you need to be willing to elevate those things, quantify them, qualify them, get them added to the risk register, and make somebody else other than you own it. Because if it's a problem and you saw it and you never tell anybody about it, you're the person responsible for it.
Yeah.
But if you tell somebody else about it and you make it their problem, CYA.
Yes, indeed. I've posted some links in the comments about everything we've chatted about: the Cloudflare outage, some of these UK British chains. That's kind of redundant. Nice framework, bad successor. A whole chunk of stuff that I think folks should keep up to date with. Of course, if you are looking to learn more about Enable, I believe, Lewis, you guys have some products around security, data protection, monitoring and management, endpoint management for MSPs, IT departments, and resellers. I'm going to pop a link where folks can schedule. Lewis, could you maybe give an overview of some of that suite of products?
Yeah, so Enable's been around for 20 some years. We were one of the first companies out there with an RMM platform, but we're way beyond that now. We are more of a cyber resilience company now than anything else. We do have our unified endpoint management motion, which is what you expect out of RMM tooling: remote access, ability to monitor, push changes, script actions, things like that. But we also have our security suite of the house and our data protection side of the house. On the data protection side of the house, we have Cove. Wonderful solution. Absolutely recommend it for anybody that feels like you cannot see and you cannot trust your current backups, and you have people that are spending more than 5 hours a week trying to keep those up. Check out Cove. It is honestly a time saver there for just that form and function, but also with business continuity solutions are in it. There's recovery testing in it. So if you have somebody on your team that is spending X amount of hours, downloading an image, mounting it, booting it, verifying it, getting a screenshot, putting that in your ticketing, putting that in your compliance auditing workflow so that you have proof that you did it, we can handle that for you. It's an automated function in the platform. You get the screenshot, you get the record of it. Great, good. You now saved somebody on your team the work, but now you don't also have to worry about them going, oops, I forgot to purge or delete this sensitive client data in this image, and this image has been sitting here in a public share for 6 weeks. That kind of stuff. Then there's our security side. We have EDR integration inside of our RMMs, but our newer acquisition is AdLumen. So it's now Enable powered by AdLumen. This is our MDR offering. I like to talk about it though as in what it does. It is a SIM to XDR to SOAR to 24/7 SOC with triage, remediation, and compliance and auditing reporting. It can all come out of one pipeline for you. So you can make that jump if you're an MSP that says, I'm a 5-person operation. I am not going to hire an overnight person. Somebody's just going to be on call. Or you made the decision of, we do 24/7 monitoring, but we're only in the office 8 to 5. And you haven't made that jump over to real 24/7. This is a great way of doing it and offloading it to us to enable to be able to handle that, 3 o'clock call, that 3 o'clock situation. Somebody's logged in from somewhere they shouldn't be able to log in. We need to have those accounts disabled. We need to have the endpoint they were on locked down. We need to, one user modified another user in an unusual way, bad successor. Well, don't need to just lock down the one making the edits. You got to lock down the one that was edited as well. So we have that in our MDR portfolio as a capability. And it's really you always hear people on the vendor side, it's a game changer. It'll improve efficiency. You'll be able to generate higher margins. And it's like, well, yeah, it will. But for me, being from the MSP space myself, being, starting out as a bench technician and working the way up, it's a heartburn safer. It is a nightmare reducer. It is, if you have never sat down and actually talked to a knock SOC team about their stress levels and what keeps them up at night, and which clients make them just, the hairs on the back of their neck stand up every time they see a ticket come in from them, Adlumin MDR is a great service because it just offloads so much of that stress from the team. So they're happier, they're less stressed, and they will, you're getting all the benefits of, they have more time, they won't cut corners as much. They'll be able to do more threat hunting. They'll be able to do more proactive work rather than just constantly trying to deal with a stream of alerts that are coming in and, alert fatigue and everything else that goes with it.
Fantastic
stuff.
Yeah, Lewis. Again, folks can find, we have a link right there if you'd like to schedule some time with Enable to talk about any of the solutions. But Lewis, we certainly appreciate you. Is there anywhere folks can keep up with you or what you're up to in the IT security space?
Yep. So you can find me out on LinkedIn under The Security Pope. You can also catch me every once in a while out on Twitch. I might be doing a little bit of coding or microcontroller programming or something like that. And professionally, I'll be at Roost Low in Florida next week at RoostCon. And then also I'll be all the way in Australia for anybody that's on that side of the world. July 26th through the 29th at the Enable Inform events.
Sounds fun.
If you're an MSP and you're in the Enable family, make sure you're aware of the Inform event and come see us. And even if you're not, and you're in the happen to be in the land of Oz, come out and check out the Inform event. There'll be a lot of good peer conversations happening there. It won't just be us talking to a room full of people and pestering you to buy from us.
All right, right on, Lewis. It's always a pleasure. Didn't mean to share. Hopefully you have a great rest of your afternoon. We'll see you on again next time.
Thanks for joining us, Lewis.
All right.
Been a pleasure.
Thanks. See ya. Bye.
Take care.